was today. Players got in, physicals done, and most importantly, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and some players talked to the media where they were able to give us some of the answers to the questions we've been looking for to begin camp. Me and Marco are here. We're going to be breaking it all down right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the program. We were live yesterday, talked a little bit about the Trey Lance video that dropped and some of the 49ers hype, but we're back today because Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch gave their thoughts on the 49ers this year, training camp, and a little bit of an insight into their thoughts next year. But before we get started, Marco, how you doing, my man?
How's it going, brother? How was your day today, man?
Good day. Was able to catch all of the 49ers or catch the press conferences at 11 o'clock. That was a nice, a nice jolt back into the football world. Tomorrow, early start because day one of training camp is here. I'm excited. I can't wait to really see football in front of my eyes back again. Practice starts at 10:15, so stay tuned on my Twitter and on the YouTube channels out here, both mine and Marco's, for updates tomorrow. But before we get there, we got to start with the preview of training camp that Shanahan and Lynch gave us today. Let's start it off, though, with the kind of the most important thing, maybe a little bit of a shocker to some people.
Absolutely a shocker.
Brock Purdy is fully cleared to practice on July 25th. As of July 25th, Brock Purdy has been cleared to practice. Kyle Shanahan said that he saw Brock Purdy throw earlier today. He will not practice tomorrow because they are on a throwing program, a pitch count that has him practicing 2 out of every 3 days. But guys, we've heard all coming into training camp, it's going to be that 3-month process after the doctor diagnosis or whatever on June 2nd. That ended up supposed to be on August 21st. May 31st was when that 3-month deadline was about to start. Ends up becoming August 21st is when the 3 months are supposed to happen. This is a full month ahead of when Brock Purdy was reportedly expected to be ready.
It's like a month and a half, I believe.
Yeah,
month and a half.
Maybe a little over, like something like that. But wow, that's just a huge shocker. Great news because obviously the 49ers have said we're not going to throw him out there until we feel he's ready. Well, they feel he's ready. He's taken the steps, and again, you're still on a pitch count. You're practicing 2 out of every 3 days, but he's going to be QB1 when he's out on the field. What was your takeaway from when hearing that?
My takeaway was that was interesting. I wasn't expecting that. I don't think many people were. The reason why I wasn't expecting that is when you take a look at the injury and stuff like that. Now you're putting him in practice, right? Now I understand that he had 7 to 8 days or 7 to 8 games of film where he looked good, right, in live action. Well, listening to a podcast, and we'll talk about a podcast a little bit later with TK Kawakami from The Athletic. Kyle went on to say that the reason why Brock Purdy was on the roster last year and the reason why he felt confident if he had to go to him in the regular season was because of the practice film, right? So this tells me that, one, Kyle respects what's going on in practice more than we think, right? A lot of times people are like, oh, it's more important to see it in the preseason and regular season. That's true. Regular season's true. I agree. But I think Kyle holds a lot of weight to practice because they're going up against not a regular defense. They're going up against an elite defense, a defense that is the best in the league. So I think it holds weight in front of Kyle's eyes. Now, you're going up against the number 1 defense. How does that arm react when he has to fit it into a tight window? Does he try to fit into tight windows? Does he, now questions start happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal news. Absolutely. I don't want people to be like, oh, Marco's hella negative. He doesn't like that he's healed. Phenomenal news, because now you have your QB1, if he is your QB1 going forward. Now, that's what we'll answer later, and I have an interesting tidbit from Kyle Shanahan on that podcast. Um, but to me, phenomenal news. Glad he's healed. This is great news for not only Brock Purdy, but I think for Sam Darnold and Trey Lance as well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, exactly what you said. Phenomenal news. Talking about Brock Purdy here because, like you said, we didn't expect this. We were talking hell yesterday. Is PUP an option for Brock Purdy? And we agreed that PUP it's not a hurt. It wouldn't hurt just in this case if he wasn't ready to practice because you can activate him at any time. And this is the preseason PUP as well. But Brock Purdy, this is very much ahead. Greg Khan says 6 weeks ahead. This is great news for the 49ers because I had been saying in the last few streams, best case scenario for the 49ers is to see at least what they have in all three of their quarterbacks when they're on the field simultaneously. And it's not like this is a pure lock in terms of Purdy getting all the reps, right? He's out one of the 3 days, and so those days is where you can cycle in the Sam Darnold and Trey Lance QB1 reps.
But
However, this does have implications, and I'm sure you're about to get to that, and that's where I'm going to phrase it to you. Whose stock right now is trending up, and whose stock right now is trending down?
So the way I look at it is I think Brock is going to be active. He's going to at least throwing every day except for one when I did at least for open practices, right? So when I did like the calculation and everything like that, based off of open camp, it looks like only tomorrow he won't be throwing. But then if you look at it, luckily his days land where I think he'll only miss tomorrow. I could be wrong based off the dates and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So trending up, it has to be Brock Purdy, right? Like he has the keys in his own hands. Like it's all up to him. If he does well or even decent in training camp or good, it's his job. It's his job to lose no matter what. Now, I would also say trending up is the other two quarterbacks, because if Brock Purdy, like Kyle Shanahan says, if he has any rust or anything like that, that's going to be a deciding factor on, do you let him play week 1 or week 2 if there's rust throughout the longevity of training camp. And if there is rust, do those other guys capitalize on what they are putting on the field, right? And what I mean by that, let's say, hypothetically, Sam Darnold comes out and lights it up against the ones when he gets the opportunity. He goes 9 for 9, whatever, looks fantastic. It isn't missing, is very good and accurate, decisive. It gives him an opportunity to go then and compete with Brock Purdy if Brock Purdy struggles a couple of days in camp, or vice versa, if Trey Lance has a practice like that. So I think, honestly, all three quarterbacks are trending up right now. And the reason is one, Brock's health, so it means he's going to be there throughout camp, which is great. It means your projected starter at the quarterback position is going to be there week 1. And then the other two is they're given an opportunity on the same playing field as Brock. Now it's not going to be where, Brock looked good a month after them, or man, Trey looked really good a month ago, but now he hasn't had the opportunity. So like, you're going to see them all every day together for the majority of the training camp practices. So I think it's a fair playing field because you get to see them the same day. You don't get to see one quarterback and then 3 weeks later it's like, that quarterback looked good 3 weeks ago. Today he struggled, but that quarterback had a good practice. You get to see them all at one time. So I believe they're all trending up, if that makes sense. I don't know if that kind of answers the question or it allows me to like take a step back. But I would say all three are trending upwards because the other backup quarterbacks have the opportunity at hand if Brock struggles. But at the same time, Brock has the opportunity to go crazy.
I can see what you mean. And here's what I'll say. Maybe you disagree a little bit. I will say Brock Purdy for sure is trending up right now because earlier in the offseason, I said the number one way for Brock Purdy to maintain the grasp on his job, to make sure that it doesn't fall out of his hands, is for him to be ready by training camp, because then he's there in practice. He's the QB, because when he's there, he'll be the QB1. He's got the reps, and this is the best way for him to hold a stranglehold on the position, because then it takes away from QB1 reps from Lance and Darnold, which is the number one chance for them to prove their own worth. I will say, though, that the stock is trending down for both backup quarterbacks. And I'm not saying this in any personal way towards them and their play. It's strictly because of opportunity. Because right now, you had a lot of the way that I wanted this offseason to go had Purdy not been ready. Day one, Lance gets the reps. Day two, Darnold gets the reps. Or at least not the way I wanted it to go, but the way I anticipated it going. Lance gets reps day one. Darnold gets QB1 reps day two. Lance 3, Darnold 4. A one-off, one-off, one-off. The reason for the one-offs, instead of having them have the QB1 reps on the same day, is because it gives you an entire day to integrate yourselves in the offense for what you're implementing from the playbook that day. I think that is important. That's really important, and I really dislike the way the 49ers ran it last year with Brunskill and Brendel at the center position. It just didn't give any continuity for them at the position, as well as the remainder of the players around them. I think it's important to give the reps to that quarterback for that day. It's much tougher to do that now because you only get every one of 3 days where Purdy is not in the mix. And so you're likely going to have to stack giving the QB1 reps to one guy, and then 2 series later, it's the other guy who gets the QB1 reps and things like that. And that's where I think, it's a downtrend for both backup quarterbacks, because I don't think that that's favorable for either guy. And I also think it limits, obviously, the opportunity for them to have QB1 reps with Purdy in the mix playing at QB1, albeit on a pitch count whenever he's on the field. And so that's why I'm saying it's a down, both of those guys are trending down at the moment.
I totally get what you're saying, because at the same time, both of those quarterbacks, for their limited reps, those reps are a lot more crucial for them, right? If you get six reps with the ones, those 6 reps got to be perfect, right? Like, you want those reps to be absolutely perfect, or else it's kind of a wasted rep in the sense of the competition. So I do get what you're saying in the sense of it is a downhill battle for them, or uphill battle for them, because when you look at them, there are 2 quarterbacks that are fighting for their lives in the NFL, realistically. So when I'm looking at the 49ers landscape at the quarterback position, it's great that you have your quarterback 1 there week 1 of training camp, ready to go. But should I mention it now on what Kyle said on the podcast, or should I wait a little bit later about the terms of who the starting quarterback is?
There's a lot of nice stuff said on this podcast. A lot of interesting details, because Kyle keeps it 100. And so
Are you listening to it right now? Are you listening to it?
I'm seeing some of the quotes coming out, and they've agreed with some of the things that I've said earlier this offseason. So you know what? Let's shift it. And for those of you guys that don't understand what podcast we're talking about, on top of the press conference he had today, Kyle Shanahan had a appearance on the TK show. They recorded a podcast together. They do this annually. And Shanahan gave a couple of tidbits on the quarterbacks. Marco, go ahead and
I
say
think
what you heard.
the most important one, or the one that stood out to me the most from that podcast, was Kyle Shanahan said. So he was asked on his choice to go with Purdy over Lance, or Purdy over like whichever quarterback he wanted, and his answer was, "I still don't know what the right answer is." I was like, when he said that, I was like, wait, you were just super excited at the press conference, or you seemed to be excited at the press conference because your quarterback 1 was fully cleared. But then now you're saying you don't know what the right answer is. Like, to me, it's like, wait, are you giving yourself the option or the out to say, hey, if Sam Darnold or Trey Lance win the job in camp, then you could say, throughout camp, we figured out the process of XYZ. What kind of was interesting to me was he talked about training camp last year, and how during training camp you were able to see Brock Purdy against the threes and the limited reps with the threes, and during camp the team was starting to like rally around him a little bit, like, okay, this kid could play. There's some things around him. So when he turned the keys over to Brock Purdy, It wasn't like, oh, during the season he didn't have to go trade for anyone or react weird because everyone already had saw him in camp and what he was capable of. So when
Hmm.
he's saying this, I'm like, wait, so are you telling me, and like this is how I was thinking, I'm like, wait, so if Sam Darnold or Trey Lance show out in camp, are you telling me you won't feel awkward or you won't feel weird turning over the keys to one of those two quarterbacks over Brock Purdy because they showed out in camp and the team feels confident that they're capable of playing? Because that's what it kind of sounded like. And then he went on to also say that the main reason why he signed Sam Darnold was because he was unsure when Brock would be back. Like to me, I'm like, wait, I thought a lot of the fan base was saying the Sam Darnold signing was due to the the lack of confidence in Trey Lance. There's never a point in the offseason from Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch where they say that they're hedging their bet on Trey Lance. Like they've always said, we're more confident in Trey now than we were in the past. He also talked about footwork and how he's gotten better, how he looks healthier. Um, so that was interesting tidbit from me, from what I got from the TK show, uh, in the sense of who the starting quarterback going week one. To me, that was interesting. I thought that was a perfect opportunity for Kyle Shanahan to go out and say, you know what, Trey Lance is my quarterback one throughout training camp and going into the regular season, barring injury, right, or barring setback. Now, when the way he reacted to that, it leaves a lot of opportunity for the job to be won by the other two quarterbacks. And to me, that is doing a disservice to Brock Purdy because what all you're doing is continuing to do what you did to Trey Lance and to Jimmy Garoppolo. When Jimmy Garoppolo was around, you traded for a quarterback. You kept Jimmy as your guy, but you started implementing Trey Lance, right? Trey Lance is your guy year two. So last year, you keep Jimmy Garoppolo around as a hey behind my shoulder. Now you're
Right.
keeping two other guys behind Brock's shoulder, and it's not a way you should go as a head coach or an offense coordinator. If I'm being honest with you, I think the 49ers organization is not handling the quarterback situation the right way, Rohan. It's hard to say it, but they're not. I think if you're gonna fully invest into Brock Purdy, fully invest into him and say that's my quarterback one moving forward, no matter what. I don't get the. I still don't know what the right answer is at this point. If that's the case, make it a full-on blown quarterback one competition and split the reps evenly with the first team. I think it's ridiculous what they're doing. If I'm being 100% honest.
I mean, I think that that's fair. Talking about the 2 points, it was interesting. I found the one about the hedge on Purdy being interesting because it's exactly what I said back in March. We signed Sam Darnold the day of we went live, and a lot of people said, for, I think a lot of people's narratives changed because back then, go back to March. People don't understand the certainty around Purdy was nowhere near that level back in March. He had that surgery, right? What was it, March 2nd? He had that surgery maybe a week or two right before the 49ers signed Sam Darnold. And at that time, when you're talking about at the minimum a 6 month delay, right? That was the minimum that every doctor was saying. That's August. That's like not August. That's September 2nd. That's close. That's close to September, the start of the season. And
Mm-hmm.
also, look in the language of the contract. I specifically wrote in an article about the language of the contract where it says that they are guaranteeing him an active roster spot salary for 7 games, which meant that they didn't know. Like they expect Sam Darnold to be the backup quarterback at least for 7 games, hedging their bets on the health of one of their two quarterbacks for 7 games, which indicated, well, one, it could be insurance based on the injury history they've had, but two, if Purdy didn't return, at least for those first 4 games, which is what Shanahan initially alluded to at the owners meeting back in March, back on March 29th, you know, the 6 to 8 month timeline is what he said, which involved the first 4 weeks of the season. That's where you can piece two and two together to see why Sam Darnold's getting the incentives and the active salary bonus for 7 games that he is. And so I personally viewed it as a hedge on Purdy, but also you could infer a hedge on Lance, but not in the way that people are talking about. The
Mm-hmm.
hedge on Lance is not about his ability. It was about the injury history, both because he was returning from that ankle injury, and again, there's still a level of uncertainty prior to OTAs, probably as to how much he was going to throw and how much he was going to be ready come OTA period. But he was fully healthy, and also just in general the health of the quarterback room. How well is he going to be healthy for the entirety of the year? It was a pure hedge on the bets of health for both quarterbacks, not on the talent of either quarterback. And I thought that was important. And I'm glad Kyle Shanahan cleared that up because that was my initial thoughts back in March when we heard about it. As for, the uncertainty as to who starts, I think it's fair for Shanahan to say that at the moment, just knowing because, he's seen Brock throw more than any of us, but how long does the buildup take? I think that it's fair when you take into account that the 6 month timeline comes to late August, early September, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you don't know exactly how the buildup is because when it came to Nick Mullins back in the day, right? He was there. He was playing in training camp, but it really took a month or two for that buildup, the arm strength buildup, right? To
And
to
even
really get
then,
back to 100%. Yeah.
he said in the past, like my arm strength wasn't there until later in the season. So like realistically, is from the previous guys that we've seen, right? Ben Roethlisberger, the most recent one, his arm strength wasn't there. So I get what you're saying, like in the sense of the buildup has to from here till the season. The buildup's going to be it's a long time. But do you think that the arm strength, whatever is going to be interesting? Or like if the arm strength goes away or isn't the same, what do you think the reality is for Brock Purdy? Because he was already limited in that range.
No, that makes his job ultimately tougher because one issue with Purdy when that I've pointed out on film was the hesitancy with some of those throws between the second and third windows on these curl routes that Ayuk would run, on these different routes that would be run. Instead of firing it there, he'd fire it to the check down. And that is partially because he was hesitant, but also partially because he understands the issues with his own arm. He's a good quarterback in understanding the issue, not the issues, but he understands his own arm talent. He doesn't necessarily push it too much, but he understands where he is, and that helps him with some of the completion, the accuracy, and the decision making. But that limits that aspect even more and makes the 49ers more and more, less and less of a deep threat offense down the field. It takes away from some of the routes that they can run in the route tree, and it'll help defenses probably look towards those crossing routes and help try and eliminate those. It's essentially that adds another layer of defense against the 49ers offense if the arm strength can't be built back up.
So from what I heard, and this isn't putting words in your mouth, is essentially we will have the same exact offense with Jimmy G, an offense that is going to be played to stop the run, where DBs are breaking on in routes, are not playing the deep safety. They're not afraid of the deep ball, because realistically, you started seeing that last year, and it's because of the arm strength and the ability to make those throws, right? So, like you're saying, on the deep comebacks for Brandon Ayuk,
Mhm.
you're kind of limiting your offense. And what I got from Kyle on the podcast with TK was he doesn't want to pigeonhole himself to Brock Purdy. Like that to me, that was like he was like, well, and this is another tidbit I took from it. And the reason why I'm saying what I took from it is he's like, well, we did see a lot more from Trey Lance in college than we did Brock Purdy, so I'm confident there. Like he was like confirming, like yeah, I saw a lot from Trey, so I think Trey could be just as good, if not better, in a way. Like that's kind of like his way of like throwing it in there, and I'm like, wait, why is Kyle? Why are you mentioning Trey? Talking about your quarterback one, like your quarterback one's Brock. Hype up Brock. Stop. Like, stop hedging on Brock, man. If that's your quarterback one, go with him. But it kind of sounded like, and I'm very interested to hear what you think after you listen to the podcast on what he really thought, like what you got from it. Because he was leaving the door open for anyone else to start if they win the job in camp. So it's weird. I don't know.
My bigger question kind of these aren't that challenging questions. I'm wondering like why they weren't asked in the first place in the initial presser. Because I thought that, especially given how much you've invested in Lance, how much like,
Absolutely.
with Purdy coming back and things like that, at least there would be one question. How do you envision this playing out week one? Right now, is Brock still the leader in the clubhouse to start week one? What would it take? Something along those lines of what would it take to push Brock off starting week one after he's been back in? Because you're right. There was a lot of optimism around Brock Purdy to the media today from from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and I'm not going to waver off that. I do believe that optimism is fair because for him to be throwing two out of every 3 days right now is that's pretty remarkable. I props to Brock Purdy for the way he's worked, and props to him for the recovery. Somehow it's happened this quickly, but I'm surprised that there wasn't any question. And then Kawakami comes out and he just asks the general question, and he gets this answer.
Yeah, that's what I took from it too. Because like I thought that was interesting is during the media thing. Uh, hey, this is funny. I love, I love the support. Yesterday we talked about it. It does not look weird. If you think it looks weird, then you thought Jimmy Garoppolo's throwing motion also looked weird. Because it broke it down. Same quarterback coach built him the same way Jimmy Garoppolo was built. But interesting comment.
Just check out yesterday's video. We tried to break it down in our own ways on what they were looking for. Maybe it might seem weird with some of the drills that they were looking at, where you might be experimenting things like looking to specifically work through the follow through or things like that. Go ahead and check out yesterday's video. See if you agree with us there, because obviously we're always open to comment about that.
Because it's a similar throwing motion. Like they kind of broke it down to a little bit like Jimmy Garoppolo's quick release, same kind of hips and everything. But going back to the situation with Kyle and everything, I felt like the media is letting the 49ers go. They're giving them a free hall pass right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
they they took a quarterback third overall, traded a lot of picks. Eventually, the seventh, Mr. Irrelevant becomes your quarterback. But they botched the situation, and I think the media could have asked a lot of better questions. I think the best question was asked by Grant when Grant asked about Trey Lance, and he asked what was
The
the
Christensen one, or what are you saying?
yeah, he asked the Christensen one. He also asked what do they think of him? What are the
Oh
mechanics? How
yeah,
they look, and they said we think he
the
looks
feet.
good. His footwork, feet look better. And one thing that Kyle's always mentioned is you tie your feet to your brain. So that was like, whoa, okay. If he saw that, he knows the brain is already there, like the IQ and everything is there. I wonder what Kyle sees there. But then I thought it was interesting because Kyle they asked, did you guys recommend him to Christensen? He goes, no, we don't recommend our players to anyone.
That's not true
I
though.
It's not true.
They
Remember when the
recommended him to John Beck, and I thought that was fairly publicized.
thank you.
And they might have recommended him. I forget the other guy, Quincy Avery. I'm not. I think Lance might have gone to him on his own, but it seems like Lance found, at least overall, it seems like Lance was the one leading the way with Christensen, and the 49ers were totally okay with it.
49ers signed cornerback Terrence Mitchell
Right
as their
now?
NFL veteran. Yeah, and that's probably due
Oh,
to
sick.
um,
It's probably due to the injury to Luter.
yeah, Luter. Luter probably be on the PUP for a good while. If it doesn't IR him this
Terrence
year,
Mitchell played for Pittsburgh,
Chief,
right?
I believe he played for the Chiefs for a little.
Oh no, not Terrence Mitchell. That's Mike Mitchell. He played for the Chiefs and he played for Houston.
Yeah, I thought he played for. I thought he played for the Chiefs for a little bit.
Yeah,
He played for the
he's
Bears,
a
I
he's
believe,
a
too.
he's a Bay Area guy. He's from Sac.
Makes sense on why they signed him. Probably a guy that they could get into camp
Yeah,
fast. Don't have to really worry about that. But honestly, I think the way the Niners are handling the situation is it's kind of interesting because you're hedging on every quarterback you have in the building for the last couple of years. Stick to one guy, roll with them. A couple of other comments, or like, what was your most interesting comment throughout the presser, whether it was from John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, or any of the other players?
Ooh, most interesting comment. I would probably say, because I wrote about it, so probably if we're talking, I'll keep it to Shanahan and Lynch. I mean, they're obviously the funny ones. You talked about Debo and things like that. Nick Bosa is not reporting. That's an interesting one. Um, hmm, what do you think? I'll think of one. What do you think as I think of one?
So mine, it was weird because I felt like it caught Fred Warner off guard. Um, they asked Fred Warner what is he thought, what are his thoughts
Oh, I got mine.
on the Brock Purdy situation being fully clear, and he goes,
Oh, he didn't
okay,
know. He didn't know, right?
like he knew, but he was like, okay, like why do I care? Like I was like, when he's like the way he reacted, I'm like, bro, that's your starting quarterback. Like, do you not like him? What? Because he like reacted like, I don't like. Okay, well he's a good quarterback. Like,
Maybe he
kind of like,
expected it then. Maybe he was
I
just
don't
like
think he expected it, but I thought like, how
like
do
no
you
no no.
not?
Like he expected Purdy. He didn't expect the question. He might have expected Purdy to just maybe he's seen Purdy practice and he's just thinking that's normal. Not sure.
Yeah, like it was weird because like so because he goes, okay, oh yeah, no restrictions. Like, kind of like wasn't expecting that question. And I was like, how are you not expecting? Because I assume the team already knew.
Hmm.
Um, after hearing it from Kyle, all the players know that he's been cleared, and then he answered like that. I'm like, wait, why are you answering like that? Like, how'd you not expect them to ask you about your quarterback one? Like, come on now, PR should have done a better job right there because he looked confused. He's like, okay, yeah, no restrictions.
For me, I'll go with Kyle Shanahan and his continued love for Mr. Brandon Allen. Um, Kyle Shanahan dropped a comment about mixing up the two reps, and you know, I forgot for a quick second this morning that Brandon Allen was still on the roster. I thought he had been released, but no, he's still there. And it seems like Kyle Shanahan's going to mix the 2 and 3 reps with all three of his guys instead of just having twos be Lance, threes be Darnold. No, seems like it's going to be Brandon Allen too. And I wonder if
I
that's
think
specifically for the split on the days that Purdy is out. Maybe Allen doesn't throw much at all, or maybe he's only in the run packages on the days without Purdy. But that was interesting. He wants to get some reps in for Brennan Allen.
I agree. I thought that was weird. Like, why mention Brandon Allen, your fourth quarterback on the roster? Like, that was
Like it's
like,
pretty
okay,
clear at this point he's not making the roster. Even if Purdy is not ready week 1, he won't make the roster.
don't say never. What if
You
Trey
think they
Lance is
carry
straight?
4?
What
Oh,
if
I mean,
Trey's straight?
sorry. Barring a trade, obviously. I mean,
Like,
I mean, if you keep the core quarterbacks as it is, I don't think they carry 4. That's my point.
yeah, I don't think they carry four. I think he'd be a practice squad candidate. But I thought it was interesting because he mentions Brandon Allen. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
unprompted.
I don't think that Brandon Allen gets reps any of the days that Purdy's there. And I think he gets limited on reps with the QB3s, with the third string offense as a QB3 when he's not available. I don't think he gets any um, of Trey's and Sam Darnold's reps. I really don't. Like, realistically, if we do that, Rohan, I'm telling you, they would be the biggest botch you could possibly do because you're trying to figure out who your quarterback 2 is, your quarterback 3 is. And if you start implementing Brandon Allen, who's never shown anything in his career, I mean, granted, OTAs, he looked pretty good. He looked solid for at one point. Didn't have a pass at the floor against 7-on-7s and in team drills. But if you do that, you're wasting quality reps from any other quarterback. And to me, that's pointless, especially because he's not
Right.
going to be roster bearing injuries or trade or injury. So
Like you're already limited in reps. Any rep you take away or any rep you give to Brandon Allen is a rep you're taking away from figuring out how Trey Lance or Sam Darnold can work in that package. And so maybe it is on maybe it is on the days without Purdy. That's only 1/3 of the days. But I thought that was interesting because like involving Brandon Allen there, like maybe you anticipate one of the other guys not playing as much, but like last year, the third quarterback maybe got 5 passes a day, maybe max 7 passes a day. So now I'm wondering how like what is that split going to be between the twos and the threes? Because it's going to bleed into the threes, like Shanahan said, between Lance and Darnold. How are they going to get that involved? Because it's not like just because to figure out this position they're going to take away reps from all the other positions and give them mainly to the ones and twos. They're going to give some to the threes as well.
I don't know, man. My QB depth chart just came out based on the 49ers posting their video for camp. Um, my QB depth chart's out. If you want to hear it, based off of the 49ers,
Based off that one video, the
based off
hype
the
video.
video, the hype video of them walking in.
All right,
It,
how is it?
it's bro. Based off of that, QB1's Trey, QB2's Brock, and QB3's Darnold. Based off the video alone, nah. But I think it's interesting. You're gonna see people on Twitter talking about that. Oh, Trey Lance was first. He's quarterback one. Like, oh, that's how they think of it. Like, it's gonna be so funny seeing people talk about that throughout the week or in the next couple of hours, based off of the hype video that they released, which I believe was earlier today, or not so long ago actually. So for me, I think that's going to be interesting to watch people talk about. The interesting part that I'm curious on is who talks at the press conference tomorrow for the quarterbacks. There was no quarterback that talked today. It
Oh,
was
you
all.
know
It
what they're
was.
gonna do? Oh wait. One sec.
It should be Darnold.
I have the schedule. Let me because let me see if names are on that. But
It should be It should be Brock Purdy. But based off of how the 49ers operate, they might go no quarterback.
I was honestly thinking the opposite. I think they do all three again. That one day where they did all three. That's kind of funny. Imagine they do all three
Or you
again.
do that, but if you do that, then you're blindly telling everyone without publicly saying it, this is a full-blown quarterback competition. Whoever wins the job wins the job. There's no reason why all three quarterbacks should speak, right?
Are they also gonna like? Will they have a quarterback up? I forget how they do it. So after practice, is there always one quarterback that ends up being up there?
Usually it depends on how they choose, but usually the first day, most teams have their quarterback speak. They have one of their biggest players. So I expect quarterback Kittle, Debo potential or Christian McCaffrey or Debo, and
It
then
would be
someone
players who
else.
didn't speak today, right? Or will they repeat them?
Usually, that's what happens. So I'm curious on how that goes because you're allowing the 49ers to, like, I don't know. It's just weird. Like, if you're gonna have a quarterback speak, that's your quarterback you're going forward with. That's your quarterback one, right? Like, it's what normally teams do, even when there's a competition.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to see who speaks tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree, and that'll be interesting. Who did he confirm who's going to throw first tomorrow with the
He
ones?
said quarterback. He said day one quarterback Brock Purdy will not be there. Um, I plan on splitting reps evenly between Sam Darnold and Trey Lance on the days that he's not there. But if I change my mind, don't go and criticize me because I'm telling you right now, whatever. I have the opportunity to change my mind after me and the coaches speak later today. So that was
Mhm.
like he kind of like gave himself an opportunity to, if he gives one of the quarterbacks all the reps, the reason why.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Brock should practice Thursday, Friday. That's what Shanny said. So that'll be cool. We see Brock out there. And I'm wondering, does practice mean is he involved in team drills or not? We'll see. But yeah, um, will be a cool time to see everything that they implement and things like that.
I mean, I'm curious. So Debo Samuel situation, right? Are you expecting? We'll talk. Want to talk Debo real quick, and then right after Debo, talk Bosa because
Let's do it.
that's kind of interesting. Debo situation, it's interesting because before they left in last offseason or during the offseason, Kyle sat down with Debo and went over film and said, "Hey, look, you were sluggish. Let's be real, you were sluggish." And Debo was like, "Okay." been sending pictures of, and he looks super in shape based off the pictures I've seen on social media.
Oh,
Uh,
that boy, he's good now. He's good. I mean,
he
he was
looks
good at
slim.
he was good back in minicamp. Because I know we saw a shirtless picture of Deebo Samuel back in minicamp. He looked in shape. He seemed in shape. I mean, he reported on time. He seemed in shape and all that, right? Instead of taking a week off and things like that. Looks like he's the training this offseason has been the best he's had in it throughout his NFL career.
So like from the picture, there's a picture I've seen where he low key has a six pack, and he's never had a six pack in his career. He's always been a thicker guy. Pause. Um, which is an interesting thing because if Debo is who Debo was during his All Pro season, plus McCaffrey, plus Brandon Ayuk, plus George Kittle, this offense should be the highest scoring offense in the NFL with a top five defense. There is no excuse on why the 49ers don't win a Super Bowl this year.
Mhm.
Like, I really don't see the excuse.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying if we don't win a Super Bowl, you don't see the excuse. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like, there's no reason we should not. Like, the Niners should be winning the Super Bowl this year with what they have talent wise, no matter
Yeah.
what.
I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah.
So we got JR Medrano. Feel like Trey's going to get that job back. This was always going to be the path. Brock starts as QB1, and Lance really has to force their hand. I said it yesterday. The only way for him to get that job or the opportunity is to force their hand.
Right.
Kyle's left the door open. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, the door's open. It's like in a way, it's in his hands. He's got to, and he's got to wow. He's got to be consistent. He's got to wow, and he's got to put everything he's learned now, all together, everything he's worked on, and it's a tall task ahead of Trey Lance for him to to get to his potential by becoming a starter this year. Tall task ahead of him. He's got a chance, but it's got a tall task ahead of him if that's the case.
I think that with Brandon Ayuk attacking the defense, saying anyone in white jerseys, it's FU with the middle finger, letting them know what it's about. I like that energy. Bringing it to camp, I love that energy.
Hey, at
Uh,
least he gives us a little warning. Last year, him and Fred threw hands twice in the same practice without any
and
warning.
that
Now
was
we
the
get
first
some
day of
warning.
camp,
I don't remember if it was the
first or
first day
second.
or not. Yeah. That was the day Fred gave somebody a concussion. I remember.
And he did pop some. I do remember that.
Yeah.
Now, I saw Demo respond. That was exciting. Demo was like, "Hey, no, so I guess I'm in a white jersey. So what's up?" Like pretty much like what I'm right here. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting earlier in the off season. Trey Lance called out Fred Warner, right? So this team is taking it upon themselves to make their practices, their training camp, as competitive as possible.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on Brandon Ayuk calling out his teammates like that, and the energy that he has? Because I absolutely love it.
Who cares? Do it, please, by all means. Uh, People are going to be like, oh, there's some whatever, this, that. I love the energy. I mean, right now, you're looking to get better. You're looking to get your side of the ball better. And I mean, the best team that the 49ers can face right now is themselves. Make sure that those battles, regardless of with pads, without pads, are as tough as they can be. And so I like the energy, and Ayuk is leading the charge. That's a good sign to see, right? You want leadership. You want a guy like Ayuk, a guy emerging to lead the charge, and that's exactly what he's doing.
I thought that's a phenomenal way to lead the charge and setting the tone 2 days before camp, a day before camp. Absolutely way to set it. Um, you also have Defensive Player of the Year not reporting to camp, at least as far as today. Now, if he does not report, the 49ers or the NFL will, I believe he gets a fine, $40,000,
Here's
$50,000. But
here's actually an update on that rule. Um,
they could waive
there's
the fines.
Yeah, so for a specific fifth year option, so the CBA clause, right? The new CBA took away the option for essentially holding out. A lot of players now will get fined the maximum, which is nearly 100,000 for those 3 days that they miss, or for how many ever days that they miss. Right, it can be up to 50,000 or so a day. However, if it's a player on a fifth-year option, the team has a decision that they could choose to waive the fines. And Kyle Shanahan seemed like he alluded that they're not. He said there's no fine because he's on the fifth-year option. Seems to allude the 49ers are going to gladly waive that fine.
And as they should, man.
Who
Find
cares? Like, it's
finding
at
your
this point,
player.
it's going to get done. Like, who cares whether he comes now? Who cares whether he comes in 2 weeks? Whatever. Bosa's the guy. You don't have to worry about him staying in shape and things like that. The reason Bosa's away right now is because he's working out in Florida. It's not like he's partying or things like that. He's working out in Florida.
But at that point, if you are legitimately finding your best defensive player, the reigning defensive player of the year, and you're letting him eat those fines, that says something about your organization. Two, that's your fault for not figuring out a contract with him when you know his market value. Everyone knows what his market value is. Highest paid defensive player in the league by far. His market is set, and if you're trying to offer lower, that's your damn fault, right? So I think the Niners understand, and they don't want to upset the client, which technically is Nick Bosa and the agent. So what they're trying to do is operate the right way, which is by not fining him and waiving those fines. But I expect Nick Bosa to be in the building within the next couple of days, negotiating his contract. I would not be surprised if the contract is finished overnight. The Niners have done that in the past where,
You're saying like overnight tonight?
yeah, I would not be surprised. I mean,
I
they've done
mean,
it in the past.
yeah, you've seen a lot of these contracts signed the day of that it starts. So he might sign it when he gets to the facility tomorrow to report. I mean, like for practice, he might sign it right when he gets there. You might hear the news break like in the morning, right before it starts. Yeah, I mean, and the good thing about this Bosa deal, it's not like they're competing with anyone right now. There's no major deal at his position that they're
Mm-hmm.
looking to compete for. That's the issue normally when it comes to these. You just saw Justin Herbert's deal break. Burrow's deal is going to break soon. I mean, that's a bag. 262.5 million. That's a pretty fat bag.
Hey,
But
Curry, now I have a question to follow up after whatever you finish saying, all right?
yeah, but like right now, Bosa isn't competing with anyone. Good thing for the 49ers. You're not necessarily, it's not like you're in a waiting game or the players are in a waiting game. This deal hopefully gets finalized within the next 24 hours. If not, it's not too big of a deal. 49ers then comes out with some younger players. You might see Drake Jackson and Cleveland Farrell be the two starters at defensive end. We'll see what they think about them. And it might give just increased opportunity to other players because even if Bosa reports tomorrow, I don't think he'll be in team drills tomorrow.
No. And I think I can see him reporting because that's just the kind of player he is, kind of teammate he is. But I think the deadline to get his contract done is around that September timeline. I think
Mhm.
as long as he's done a week before the regular season, that's all that matters. He's going to come in great shape. It does not matter. Shout out to Last Second Sport. Shout out to my man Jesse for watching us, man. Really appreciate you. Can't wait to have you on during training camp to talk some 49er football. But follow up question, Rohan, on your comments about Justin Herbert. If Brock Purdy plays how he's been playing, do you feel comfortable paying him a big quarterback contract like that eventually down the line? I know it's way premature to talk about. It's very premature because he's only played 8 games. But if he puts on another season or two, because in his third year is when he's going to want to negotiate because he doesn't have a 50-year option. So
Mhm.
he technically has 2 more years to pretty much play.
Mhm.
Do you think, or would you pay him that kind of money?
Only if he's a top 8 quarterback in the NFL. Because normally it's around that top 8 range that I believe that a team can win a Super Bowl around when they're on a max contract. Um, I think it's got to be in that range, and I think Purdy's got to reach that range for the 49ers to at least even entertain the idea. Now, San Francisco could do what they did in this last few years, get that quarterback. I would not be surprised if San Francisco's new formula, if they find success with Purdy and end up making a Super Bowl and winning one, get a new quarterback after every rookie contract, essentially. Trade a hot commodity, go for the draft, get a new quarterback, or sign somebody and get a new quarterback, that type of thing, where they don't necessarily commit major money and are able to continue paying star role players. Now, obviously, you want stability at the position and things like that, but I can only see, at least I would only justify it if he's a top 8 quarterback at that time.
I get it. I totally understand that. Especially because you want him to show out the next couple of years, and show that he's a top 2 quarterback over the next, or top 8 quarterback over the next couple of years, which would be interesting because if he is, like I said, the Niners should have no problem winning a Super Bowl this year, right? Like if he's in that range, you're competing for a Super Bowl or at least winning one. I think with the defense you have, the talent you have around him, they should definitely be a roster that wins a Super Bowl. Now, do they win it? I don't know, but I think the 49ers would be, even if it's top 8, I don't know if I would pay him that kind of money. I think when you pay these kind of guys, you're paying them for what you believe he's eventually going to even be, going forward, and that includes the talent, right? Like, what kind of talent does he have, in the sense of, can he continue that goal of top 8 quarterback in the league? I don't know. I have to see it. Shout out to David. What up, my Niner homies? Glad you're on, Rohan and Marco. Like Shang Tsung said in Mortal Kombat, it has begun. There's also
Hey,
one
baby,
where
it's
Mortal
begun.
Kombat has some of the best sayings in terms of, like, I believe they have one where it's like, it's official, you suck. Like, if we're being honest, like some of those sayings that they have, on Mortal Kombat are phenomenal. I believe there's also one where they talk about, let's fight. I think that's literally how the 49ers defense and offense are. They really what they're saying to each other is, I know someone on Mortal Kombat might be Sub-Zero, where he's like, we share blood, but we are not brothers. When he's fighting the guy that says, get over here, why can I not, Scorpion, he says all the time when he's fighting him, he's like, we share blood, but we are not brothers, right before they fight. So, like, that's how the Niners offense and defense are right now, right? Shout out to you. BP13 week 1 QB1. I mean, that's what it looks like. But also, Kyle's left the door open for anyone to be quarterback 1, which has been interesting. Finish him. Rohan, anything interesting stand out outside of the quarterback situation? Because that's kind of what the main everything. As soon as everyone found out that Brock Purdy was fully cleared, it kind of went towards that. I did think it was interesting that Mitch Wishnowsky would be placed on the non-football injury list because he was lifting, messed up his back. Anything else that stood out to you throughout these press conferences?
I wonder, are they going to cut a player to get a punter in here? Because do they really need a punt right now, in this stage, without understanding that Mish is their guy? Is it worth cutting a player?
I mean,
I know you want to practice. The whole point of punt, right, is to practice punt return and all the special team stuff that comes with it. But do you cut a guy for that?
I think you kind of have to, if you really think that the last receiver spot is going to be dictated by the special teams and punt return, right? Like we were talking about it the other day.
Right.
Does Ronnie Bell and Tay Martin, or Ronnie Bell and whoever else, does it come down to special teams ability? And if their special teams ability is punt return, you kind of have to start implementing punt return now to see what they are, because you don't got much time to dictate that. Now, do you allow them to just go straight into and it could be Mitch Wishnowsky's only out for a week or two. If that's the case, I mean, you could kind of roll with it. I think Jake Moody could punt for the time being. Kickers can normally punt decent, but I don't think you should cut someone to bring a punter in unless you 100% think that the roster spots for the last receiver position is dictated by punt return. There's no other reason to bring someone in.
And my other comment on the other injury, Darrell Luter. hyperextended knee, turned into a bone bruise on the PUP list. Or sorry, is he on the PUP?
I believe he is.
He might be on the PUP list. But he said, sorry, Shanahan Lynch, they said a few weeks, praised him a lot. Give him good praise for pre-draft and what he showed in the early portion of the offseason. But now with Luter out, who does it give the spotlight to? Cornerback Ambry Thomas will now likely work with the second team alongside Samuel Womack. Is there a chance that you believe that Ambry Thomas can earn that roster spot over Luter due to the injury? Or do you think that the 49ers have a good understanding of who they have and it's more of a different battle for Ambry Thomas?
I think Ambry Thomas has a long way to go, based on what we've seen over the last couple of years. Last year, rookie year, I thought he was solid. I thought he actually did well. Year two took a couple of steps back. Now, can he make up that ground? Because now you have Isaiah Oliver, Samuel Womack, that he has to compete with as well. Um, I think there's an opportunity for him to earn a spot on the roster. Now, the Darrell Luther does give it an easier path to
Right.
make the roster. But if I had to take a guess, I think Ambry Thomas gets cut if at any moment Darrell Luther comes back during training camp.
That's fair. I think so too. I think Luter's their guy, a guy who you heavily liked pre-draft, especially for his draft position. And it seems like the 49ers liked him a lot pre-draft and like him right now. So would be a shocker right now at the moment to see him not make the 53-man roster as one of those backup corners.
Another position I think that it's interesting, um, for the 49ers going into training camp tomorrow is has to be center, man. I keep thinking about it. That center, there's gonna be. Do we see a rotation? Because I know you hate that. Do we see them splitting reps at center one?
I really hope not. I really hope not. I mean, if you want it, get Feliciano in there on day 2 or something. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see. I don't anticipate it right now. I think the 49ers, at least for the first week, will roll the cards. Let Brendel get in there, settle back in with the entirety of the starters, see how Feliciano does with the backups. And if there's any wavering struggles with Brendel getting acclimated with the guys that he's, been around for a good portion of time now, then you might might do this one day kind of split with him and Feliciano. But at the moment, I don't envision anything like that. I do think that Brendel continues at least for this year with the way that his contract was, the way that he got a contract, the guaranteed money on that contract. I think they because just roster politics. I honestly think he's the guy that they got to roll with, and more importantly, continuity. I think
Wait, you
at
think
center he
Brendel?
provides. Yeah, go ahead.
You think Brendel because of roster politics?
Yeah, they gave him a 4-year, $20 million extension, and I know that when you look at the numbers, it doesn't necessarily look like that, but I think that it with the way that Feliciano will make the roster. With the way that his contract is structured, a fully guaranteed 1-year, $2.25 million deal. But I just think continuity is important at the center position for the 49ers. If you just look in their history, right, of the Shanahan Lynch era, they've looked for long-term options at least a little bit. They initially had Weston Richburg, right, for a few years. Injury happened. Then they brought in Alex Mack, a guy who they trusted. And then the reason that Jake Brendel played despite not really playing anywhere else, well, he had familiarity with Chris Forster back in Miami for a few years. And then he also had multiple years as a backup. One, he opted out due to the COVID year, but he had a year as a backup for the 49ers before turning into the starting center, similar to McKivitz. I think that that's the continuity that they require, especially in a position for the 49ers that's of significant importance. I think that that's important because of how, well, it's such an integral position of this offense where continuity, I think, matters not only for understanding the playbook, but for being around your teammates as well.
I think John Feliciano has a great chance to beat out Brendel for the center spot. I don't think Brendel's good. I really don't. Like watching him last year, I know you could throw out there's I've had arguments with people they throw out numbers or top 5 rush blocker per PFF or stuff like that. I've seen people talk about like other stats that you really can't evaluate, you can't use to evaluate offensive linemen in the sense of what are they really looking at to evaluate this offensive lineman? Because you see top centers rank way lower than those guys, right? So for me, watching Feliciano and Brendel, I think Feliciano matches what the 49ers want to do a little bit more in terms of if you're going to have a right tackle get help. I think Feliciano's a better in pass pro, better in run blocking, um, bigger guy, allows you to do a little bit more in the run game. Um, to me, that's going to be an interesting spot. I think if they start switching and flopping at first team reps, that'll be interesting. I think Feliciano's a better player, but like you were saying, the continuity is something major for the 49ers to take into consideration. Do you want to have the same starters, four starters along the offensive line, and keep that continuity with them? I think that's the biggest thing going into that center spot. Another position battle that I'm curious to see. No, not necessarily a battle, but I'm curious to see if does Trent Williams play tomorrow. Does he put the pads on with the first team, and do they during teams, or is he on the field during first team reps? Because if he's not, how do you evaluate the offensive line at this point? Because last year when Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams were not there, they got manhandled by the defense, even with Nick Bosa not being there.
Right.
So, what does that look like? Is that an opportunity to see who your swing tackle is? And if you don't like what you see, you could go out and trade for one or try to sign whoever's left on the market. What do you think about does Trent Williams play with the first team offense
I
tomorrow?
don't know. That's a good question because last year there wasn't really anything limiting him, right, from playing. He just, some days was in team drills, some days wasn't in team drills, and it changes the dynamic absolutely. Having Jalen Moore out there instead of Trent Williams is a huge difference, and obviously it changes the dynamics for the quarterbacks. I think this year, with how integral it is to evaluate the quarterback position, they're going to have to want Trent Williams out there as much as possible just to get a full grasp of what they can get with Williams obviously handling the blind side for each of these quarterbacks. But I'm hoping he's out there day one. I don't maybe you don't play him as much in team drills or something like that. We'll see what his availability is. Obviously tomorrow will not be a padded day, it'll be a non-padded day. Probably this entire week won't be a padded day. So maybe that helps in keeping Williams out there, but not sure. That's a good question for sure, and one that could have its own implications and ramifications for the 49ers and their quarterbacks.
It's gonna be fun to watch, man. Training camp tomorrow, you'll be there. We'll probably go live. Me and you we'll figure it out what time we go live. I might have John Chapman on the show tomorrow. Um, it's gonna be fun to watch, man. I'm excited to see the 49ers training camp situation. I'm excited of moving forward on what happens, who gets the first reps, whether it's Sam Darnold or Trey Lance
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. Um, do they finally force Christian McCaffrey to take days off because he's a workaholic and doesn't like to take days off? I think that would be very wise for them to do. Um, do you give key starters like Arik Armstead the day off tomorrow? See what you have depth wise. Javon Hargrave, should he be practicing with the team right away? A lot of things to be asked. There's a lot of things to look out for. I'm curious to see who right away, if Gibson is starting or if they have Brown implemented with the first team. That's going to be something I keep my eye on. Definitely excited to have you on the grounds doing the great work that you always do. So if you guys don't follow Rohan, make sure you guys follow him on Twitter at Rohan Chakrav. Make sure you guys subscribe to his channel because he most likely will go live right away, whether it's with me or without me. He will be going live to talk 49ers football immediately whenever he's available. So it's going to be very fun to watch on how the 49ers react throughout training camp.
100%, man. A great show today. Talked about the press conference, different things to look for tomorrow. Tomorrow, it all starts. It's going to be an exciting day. Make sure you guys stay tuned, subscribe, and like to the channel so you can drop your comments tomorrow and questions based on what I see. We're going to be going live very soon. Thank you guys all, and have a great day.